Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. Before I begin, I want to say that the author of this bill is a friend and someone that I have tremendous respect for. I don't know if anything would have changed, but I'm sorry that the two of us did not have an opportunity to speak about this bill before today. But at the end of the day, I am standing here to speak against Senate Bill 5. Texas ought to be an example for other states relative to voting rights. We ought to be leading voter turnout, not lagging behind. Let me remind you of something that perhaps you have forgotten. The initial Voter Rights Act for this country was advocated for and signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, a Democrat from Texas. But it doesn't stop there. The extension of the Voter Rights Act was signed into law by President George W. Bush in 2006. And President Bush invited me to that bill signing. Most people said he wouldn't support it. Not only did he support it, he had a ceremonial bill signing, and I was proud to attend. And I was proud of President Bush on that day for making it easier for people to vote. I hope that someday in this room, we will be able to proudly say that we did something meaningful to make it easier for people to vote. Unfortunately, that is not what we are choosing to do today. This bill is an attempt to suppress voters, and particularly people of color. Members, this is wrong. When this body passed the last voter ID bill, over 700,000 otherwise eligible Texans lost their right to vote. Time and time again, we have been told by the courts that the intent of the last voter ID law was to discriminate against minorities. We have been told we are not in compliance with the Voting Rights Act. We have chosen to ignore the courts and to double down on discrimination. We all know by this time what Judge Nelva Gonzalez Ramos of the U.S. District Court said in her opinion, and I quote, "Many categories of acceptable photo IDs permitted by other states were omitted from the Texas bill," end quote. Did we hear that concern? Did we add student ID? Did we add other state government IDs? No, we chose to stay the course. This body has made a habit of making it harder for our constituents to vote. We have made their lines longer. We have made the requirements more burdensome. Our voter registration system is archaic and intentionally inefficient. Why are we not ashamed of this? When will we set partisan gamesmanship aside for the good of our constituents? This is not an issue of red or blue, or it shouldn't be an issue of Republicans or Democrat. This ought to be an issue of constitutional right. This is, after all, a democracy. This bill will deprive people of color of their rights. Over 21 million Americans do not have government-issued photo IDs. A quarter of African American citizens of voting age lack government-issued IDs, and that is compared to 8% of Anglos. This legislation additionally creates challenges for the elderly and people in rural areas. The integrity of the ballot box demands equal access to it. Senate Bill 5 solves nothing. It is a solution in search of a problem. It doesn't put us in compliance with court orders. It doesn't make voting easier for our constituents. It does nothing to prevent fraud. What this is, members, is a different way of suppressing voters. Instead of having a literacy test or paying a poll tax, we just decided we'd have this photo ID mechanism. And, you know, I hope we don't go back to asking people how many bubbles in a bar of soap in order for them to vote. I don't know what the intent of this bill is other than to discriminate, but I stopped trying to measure intent a long time ago, because we cannot measure intent. What we can measure is impact. What we can measure is result. And the result and the impact of SB 5 is that minority voters will be suppressed. That is discriminatory, that is wrong, and I urge you to vote no on this bill.